edition. My name is Dr. Kirby Rossblock. I am the CEO, Chief Learning Officer of Tamarind Learning, and I'm here today with Tori Hawley, who is our client experience guru. She has her own story of how she got to family wealth and family business, and we are kindred spirits and sort of loving the journey that so many millennials take, and Rising Gen, and actually family members of all ages take to get empowered when it comes to wealth and business knowledge. So now that we're finally at 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, we're going to jump in and start today's Tamarind Learning demo for the U.S. education site. So Tori's going to switch on and you're going to get to see more about our embedded learning technology. And we're going to share more about how this could be a powerful experience for hopefully you as an advisor, potentially with your client families, your family office, and your peers. And so today we're going to cover quite a bit of information, but I'm going to transition over so Tori can just talk about what she's doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for introducing me. First of all, I'm really excited to be here as my debut as an official webinar speaker. I'm usually on the calls, just managing the chat and the Q&A. So I am really excited to be here and share more about the client experience side of Tamarind Learning. So we're actually logged in right now as a learner. So if you were to be a student enrolled in some courses on our Tamarind Learning site, this is what your learner dashboard looks like. So you have access to the courses, obviously, but we have a whole host of tools, notebooks, document repository, discussions. So some really powerful tools that we use to make education more engaging. And we'll talk about that more later on. But to get started, we're going to jump into our course, our advisor webinar course that we built for you all. And this is what the courses would look like, whether you are in Stewardship in Action or one of our personal finance courses. So when you get to the course landing page here, you can see the course outline. And then you can also see the instructors, Kirby and I, and as well as the ability to interact with advisors directly from the platform as well. But in this particular case, we're just going to get started with our advisor webinar goals, and I'll toss it off to you, Kirby.
Great. So again, this whole webinar is to provide more insight to you all as advisors about sort of our e-learning solution, what that looks like, how it works and complements maybe your existing strategies working with education and learning initiatives with families and clients, and how this might be a dynamic tool to support asynchronous or learn on your own kind of education, or if you're trying to support group learning with a mixed cohort of different types of learners, maybe all from one family, maybe cousins, maybe siblings, maybe parents and children. So again, we want to share with you how we think technology can greatly enhance the learning experience. And guess what? It's not the traditional Zoom experience that a lot of pandemic learning became, which honestly has put us into a not so happy place when it comes to virtual learning. I think what we've tried to move to is the very empowered type of learning platform that you can learn anywhere, anytime. So now we're going to jump to a poll because we always love to get your feedback. We know that education is hard to get going. So we want to get a sense from you, what is the greatest hurdle to delivering wealth education that you've experienced? Is it learner interest and engagement? Is it creating the curriculum and trying to figure out the resources to put up in front of a family? Is it facilitating and delivering that information? Is there something else? So right now in the polls section, Tori has just launched the poll. If you click on polls.
Yep, and we have a bunch of votes coming in so far. And we included these items in our poll because they're what we encounter with advisors most often that they struggle with. So getting that learning interest and engagement, the difficulty of creating curriculum. Kirby and I were on a call recently where someone said, well, curriculum gathering for us looks like going into the other room and, picking up a bunch of books, highlighting passages, photocopying it, and then sending it to the client, hoping that they read it, but not having any sense. And then finally, that facilitating and delivering can be really time consuming, but we'd love to hear about other things that you struggle with delivering your wealth education. So we have about 30 out of 51. So I'm going to publish this, and no surprise here with this, Kirby. The number one is learner interest and engagement, with over 50% of people having this issue when delivering their education.
Is there a way to see that? We see this slide still.
Yeah, so I think the user should be able to see it. The results have been published under the polls side, so you'll be able to see the Q&A and the polls on the Zoho site.
Great. Yeah, so it's interesting, no one did click other, and I'm sure there are lots of other things that people have experienced. But again, this is consistent when we've asked this in other webinar settings. It's really hard to get people excited and interested. So again, one of the things I think we really focused on is what is current, what is fresh, and what is applied. And so I think today's webinar will help give you some ideas of what do we mean by that. So when we think about Tamarind Learning, we wanted something that was easy to access anywhere, anytime, that was flexible, that could complement different learning styles. If I like to listen to things, a lot of folks love podcasts, I do personally, or audiobooks. We wanted to be able to have things that people could listen to that were visually stimulating, that were interesting and kind of newsworthy, and somewhat, scalable. The other key piece of this is adaptability. Can I have someone who has like a little bit of knowledge and help them bring up their knowledge level? But can I also appeal to someone who actually might have more advanced knowledge and give them more challenging work? So how can we build something that's comprehensive, that's modern, that also has a lot of, applied optionality? And that was a key component to what we thought about when we thought about the design of Tamarind Learning. Just to be clear, we own the technology, and we also have rights. We've secured rights from many different sources to use the materials in our learning.
Perfect. Yeah. And the number one thing that we came out of our last webinar, people said, this is great, this is awesome, but what is Tamarind Learning? So we are a 100% online e-learning platform. So jump on today, start learning today, and we'll talk more about our curriculum and the tools that we have within. But that's sort of the thesis, right, is that we are an online learning platform.
And one thing that we realized is that many folks said, well, why did you even start this company? The reality is Tamarind Learning was an idea well before the pandemic. We had a client who had a really complicated fact pattern. They had different ages of owners in the NextGen. They had married-ins. They also had a blended family. So we had high degrees of knowledge for some members of the family. We had very entry-level knowledge, and we needed to get them up to speed on the foundation of basics around what they owned, how they were working together. And so we needed to create a new standard that at that point we didn't really feel like existed. But we also knew that the journey is personal. And so we wanted the platform that we were building to be able to complement, say, mentoring materials that an advisor could support the family member with if they needed more mentoring by, say, the family office or the advisor. And we also wanted, the ability to apply the information to their actual fact pattern. So if we were teaching about trust, we wanted to actually teach them how to read the trust. We also wanted to give them information about what would be in a trust, so that when their advisor wanted to teach them about their actual document, they had the basic understanding of, oh, I know who, a successor trustee or a trust protector or a grantor is. And so this became the genesis actually of Tamarind Learning when we built our first complete learning platform, learning management system for this family. And then we said, you know what, this is not scalable. We know that every family is going to want to spend the money on technology and build it one-off. But what if we could build it in a scaled kind of way that would allow a new standard for our curriculum, that would have an ability to, save time for the advisor, not having to rethink a curriculum every client that they had, but that the advisor could actually customize our learning to each client that they're working with. And so this could bring down the cost significantly, save a lot of time in terms of travel budgets and offsites and retreats. And again, you might still be having those kinds of experiences, but then this becomes the learning that happens in between, right?
Yeah, and I love that you shared that, Kirby, because something in my own experience is that we would schedule education and a family meeting, right? So we haven't seen each other as a family group in a year, and we're like, okay, let's get together in a room and let's spend a bunch of time. Let's spend 4 hours going over a balance sheet, and let's talk about that. And then you leave it for another 6 months or a year. And so that's one of the things that I have found so inspiring and powerful about the Tamarind Learning education platform is its ability to be adaptable to families and keep education going over a period of time, and not just structured around, okay, we're doing it this one meeting and never talking about it again. So it creates lots of opportunity for communication and ongoing engagement.
So let's just talk about what is it. A lot of folks have asked us, well, what do you actually teach online in these different courses? So we have 10 courses: stewardship, beneficiary fundamentals, trustee basics. You can read down the line here. And they focus primarily on more of the wealth, financial, and technical aspects of family wealth, family enterprise. And we recognize that there's a lot of coaching and motivational programs out there that are more geared towards personal development and really understanding who you are, what's your relationship to wealth, and where you're trying to get to. But we're providing more, I would call, the technical underpinnings of what structures and what entities and what building blocks that go along with wealth management, business management, and family wealth management. And so the accredited beneficiary stewardship program is our full program that covers the 10 courses. There are 26 modules, and it will take approximately about a year, maybe a little bit longer if you need more time, to go through at a self-paced methodology. Now, if you're not ready to jump into all of those 10 areas, we've carved out shorter programs. The Stewardship in Action program actually only covers the first 3 courses. I know that wheel might be a little bit tiny, but Stewardship, Beneficiary Fundamentals, and Trustee Basics. So this is a great course for families who are just starting to talk about the relationships between family and wealth, and perhaps trust entities that have been set up for future beneficiaries. And so if you have no knowledge of wealth in your family or business, this is a great place to start and to begin the conversations and to socialize and sensitize. Our curriculum is designed for really about a senior in high school, about 16 to 18 level of reading comprehension. So it is accessible, but we really target adult learners and their advisors and family members. Now, the next program is more focused on estate planning, trust, and tax. This is a technical sort of program that focuses on these 3 areas and will give you a deeper dive into how does estate planning work? What are the building blocks? What are the different phases? What are the types of triggering events that impact an estate plan? And then we move into more about trusts and how do trusts work? How are they set up? What are the different kinds of trusts? What are the tax ramifications of trusts? How are they used for wealth planning, asset protection? And we move into tax because tax is a really big conversation. It doesn't happen a lot because it's sometimes not accessible. And so we provide a lot more data on all different forms of tax, from income and estate tax to generational skipping taxes. So the ramifications of tax when it comes to your financial planning. And then our last program is finance, investing, working with advisors, and trust administration. Now, this program, it sort of falls at the end, but we do have folks who sign up just for this program, and maybe they feel like they have a good knowledge of the first two areas. And this is really important because we focus on personal finance, how to read financial statements, how to understand the basics of corporate finance. We also provide exercise and activities around budgeting and planning. We also talk about how beneficiaries and family members work with their advisors, what you need to think about with hiring and monitoring and managing, and how different advisors get paid. We also dig into how do you read your investment statements and understand more complex investment governance, not just the building blocks of investing. So again, there's quite a bit of information. And one thing I do love about our system is you go through each course, you actually have the ability to rate and review. So we are constantly getting feedback from learners, and we love to share and publish what people think. Here's what somebody said: I wish I had taken this course sooner. I'm learning so many things that I wish I had known that my family never communicated to me. So again, sometimes this gives the ability to self-pace and learn on your own, but then also surface things that you find really meaningful.
Right, Kirby. And this comes back to the setting the bar of wealth education, right? So these are the things that not just yourself, but other people in our education council and other advisors that we have partnered with, that these are the key areas that wealth inheritors and beneficiaries need to know about to be successful and to be empowered. So then when we get this feedback that's like, my parents never told me about this, it's not because their parents were intentionally withholding. It's sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And so having a really good baseline and foundation education in these topic areas allow to so much room for conversation and for the family to grow together and to talk about things that have never been on the table before.
I just want to add one quick other story anecdote. We had a family member go through this. He was married in. He had a completely different career background, and some of the most validating feedback he gave to us was, he said, I didn't know where I wanted to go in my sort of wealth management, finance, investing. Was I going to go into accounting? Was I going to do financial planning? And he said, the greatest thing about your program is that it gave me a really good depth of knowledge, enough so that I could actually make the decision of where I wanted to go deeper next. And so now he's studying for his CFA. But I think what was so helpful is that this is not, it's not like an MBA. It's not like something you're going to get out of an executive ed program. This brings together so much thought leadership from so many wonderful thinkers out there in the space. And the other thing I want to emphasize, it doesn't promote anyone else's product. We don't get paid by anyone to put information into our learning management system, nor do we pay anyone for, we ask for permission. But I think that's a really key piece to know, that we have really made this, as Ivory Snow, unbiased and neutral.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that, Kirby. So I'm going to launch into how we educate learners and how we create engaging and make it interesting. So coming back to that initial poll, right? Like, how do we get people to be involved in this? And part of what we've done in developing our curriculum was using adult learning strategies. And so we know adult learners, they have to be engaged. And the way you get them engaged is participatory, involve them in decision-making, give them tools that are practical and usable. So in order to get to those practical and usable tools, we use progressive learning. And so here you can see an example of some of our finance fundamentals coursework. There's 3 modules. We assume when you're entering module 1 that you basically have no knowledge. So if you have a really high level of knowledge, you can go through this coursework and say, yeah, I have it, but it progresses to module 2, module 3, and several of our courses, we also have a 4th module as well. As you can see here, so this is the building blocks of financial planning. We're introducing the idea of income, of saving, of spending. So all these sort of really, really fundamental basic topics. And then we start to get more complex. We start to become more intermediate. We're going into your income statements, your balance sheet. And then finally, what we really like to do in a lot of our coursework is we like to culminate in a case study. So this comes back to that adult learning strategy. So you start with the information, you get some opportunities to apply it, to learn it, and then finally you get to walk in someone else's shoes, or you get to put yourself in a situation where you are using hands-on knowledge. So we have lots of tools and resources available so that users can apply what they learn and practice what they learn as well. So going through this idea of a case study, one of my absolute favorite courses that we have is Beneficiary Fundamentals. And Beneficiary Fundamentals, the 4th module, is this case study. It's incredibly robust. It's so in-depth. So you get to meet all of these family members. They all have these really dynamic challenges and interests and all of these different pieces. And as you progress through this case study, you get to put yourself in the shoes of the daughters who are inheriting. Dad assumes, of course, they know stuff. And so this comes back to that feedback we got, right? We don't even know what we don't know. And so having the opportunity to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's going through a common situation and ask the questions that they're going to ask is really, really powerful. And it also, something that I love about the platform and something that I've experienced myself is when you come from an affluent, high achieving family, one of the challenges is that everyone in the room is really, really smart. So when I'm sitting next to my cousin who has an MBA and my sister who is an executive, and I don't understand financial statements, being the person in that room who doesn't understand is really uncomfortable. So Tamarind Learning provides these opportunities. Again, going to progressive learning, you can spend 35 hours in the building blocks of financial planning and the financial basics if you want to. No one's going to know. That's up to you to learn that yourself and spend as much time, practice it, so that when you show up in those family conversations, that you're able to be comfortable with it. So that's really important. We, of course, also had to include some gamification throughout our site. And so that's a modern e-learning thing. And I really like these SWOT analyses that we have throughout. So you roll the dice and you get to decide, is this a strength, a weakness, an opportunity, or a threat? And so that's a weakness, and you score points. Eventually, if you get it wrong, you get to start over. But this is just an example of how we include sort of more dynamic, more engaging, more interesting, and all of this, again, so Ella and David are characters in the case study. It's pulling from those things. So you get to put yourself in their shoes, you get to work through a SWOT analysis. So some really fun and exciting stuff. Another thing that we have is worksheets and curated chapter selections. We understand that these are adult learners, these are professionals. And so what we do is we pull out the most targeted and relevant content and we deliver it. A lot of our content is not downloadable. So you have to be enrolled in the system because we partner with people who, because we don't purchase our or pay for people to be featured, they let us borrow their content. A great example of this is we have this fantastic inner will leadership worksheet that is in here. And in the stewardship course, you actually get to go through the exercise with someone from inner will leadership who teaches you how to use these exercises for yourself, but also with your family and the value and the importance. So we really try and take it from, we could just give you this worksheet, but we contact the person and we make it robust and interesting and engaging. And a lot of our courses include deep dives. So for example, if you wanted to learn more about our entire curriculum line by line, you would be able to click this link here and you can go out and you can download our entire curriculum outline and get more in depth on it. We also include takeaways. I just talked to you for 10 minutes straight. What was I supposed to get out of that? Tamarind Learning's curriculum embraces modern e-learning technologies and adult learning strategies to engage our learners. They leave the program with practical, usable, and meaningful skills. So this is the TLDR, too long, didn't read. We do provide sort of those nuggets so that people can come away with a really good understanding as well. So I want to dive in a little bit more about our platform technologies that foster connection and create affinity in family cohorts. But before I do that, do you have anything to add, Kirby?
No, I just can't believe how the time is flying by, and we have so much good stuff to share. So keep going.
Absolutely. Okay. So one of the things that we use to create connection, particularly in cohorts, is discussions. And so here is a discussion on the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves. And so when you log into your dashboard, you can see, oh, Ima created this post. So you as advisors who are in the audience today can create posts to engage with people if you want to. And then learners are able to interact with this as well. You can share different resources through our communication tools, but we've also built this really fantastic note taking. So one of the requests we got, user feedback, myself as a user experience and client experience expert, is that people said, I'd really like to be able to highlight your content and take notes on it directly in your lessons. So we've built the ability to do that as well. And it makes it a really, really rich and dynamic experience, because then you can take that note that you took, you found something relevant in the content, and you can share it with your family members, you can share it with the whole cohort, you can share it with an individual, or you can share it to the teacher and say, I don't really understand this. You can share it with your advisor and say, do we have more information on this? And finally, we give you the ability to get empowered and take action. So from there, you can then schedule a meeting with your cohort and your family to discuss the wealth maintenance strategies that you have learned about. So really taking the sort of the most basic thing, learning, creating connection, conversation, and then sharing it out, having a meeting, and then taking those next steps. All of this drives that interest and that engagement. And again, we're trying to interact with our learners as really intelligent people who can sort of take that next step. And so this is how you engage and you keep people interested. And a lot of our lessons also include homeworks. And so homeworks allow you to reflect on your experience as well. I just provided a brief little example of what that looks like, because we get a lot of conversations on what do knowledge checks look like? How do I know that if a client family is working through this, that they're getting something out of it? So they have the opportunities for reflection, and we also have quizzes. And then if you complete the ABS designation, there's also an exam as well.
There's so much. I think at the end of the day, we are trying to provide you an overview. So we're pulling out a lot of different treatments from our coursework, but I think we should just keep moving ahead and share more about the types of learners. What do you think, Tori?
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
So if you're an advisor who has a potential learner who needs to learn on their own time and maybe wants just to be directed, this is a great kind of system that you can get someone up and running who's self-motivated, who has a goal. Perhaps there's a stick or a carrot in the family to get them interested to want to, get this kind of information and knowledge. We also know that a lot of learning happens when there's peer pressure and a little bit of social competition. So cohort learning is a great way if you want to get a group of learners. They might be all from one family. They might be from different families. It just depends on the kind of experience that you're looking for. If you want to help them learn from each other and have a more interactive, dynamic experience and diversified. And then there's structured. And when we say structured, we really think about an advisor who is driving, or someone who's really viewed as the advisor leading the learning experience and being there paced with them. So we'll give you 3 examples quickly before we share a little bit about some of the tools, and do one more poll and leave you with something that you can take with you.
Perfect. So we're going to start with Gina, the Gen Z. This would be an example of that asynchronous learner. So Gina is a young woman. She's in college, and she has this complex trust environment, and she wants a seat at the table. And this is something that's really common with young people, particularly Gen Zs, younger millennials, is that they want to be engaged by being part of decision making. And so what we say is that you're welcome to be part of the decision making and the conversation, but having this foundational understanding is really, really important. On the other side of this, we have an advisor who wants to deliver education, but like you guys has difficulty with interest and engagement, creating and gathering curriculum and facilitating it. So essentially the solution here, right, is use Tamarind Learning, say, here's this solution, do this on your own time. You're in college, take the time that you need to go through this and make what you can of it, and then come back to me with questions. So it doesn't ask a ton of the advisor necessarily, but there is the opportunity to sort of build that rapport and that connection. Another group that we see that, and Kirby touched on this, is married-in family members. How do you onboard married-ins? And this is something that, as we started to see it with our clients and our client experience, is really, really interesting. So in this particular case study that we have, Maria is the married-in matriarch, and she recognized that when she came into the family, she didn't really know anything about it, and there was such a significant hurdle to understand everything that her husband and her the married family had grown up with. And so it was really, really stressful and gave a lot of anxiety to understand these things. And so she suggested that the next gens or the rising generation comes together and they find a education solution that covers sort of the financial basics, investing and estate planning, so that they can have a seat at the table with their spouses and be part of the conversation. So we have said that in this case, that they would work with an advisor. So they need a space to learn without judgment. So rather than having a family member or someone like that be answering their questions, they've engaged with a third-party advisor. He's familiar with the curriculum, but his real role is just to be there to answer questions, provide support, and pair the knowledge and tools to help them navigate some of this complexity that they might encounter. So here's an example of a little bit more structure than an asynchronous learner and learning together as a group. So they might meet on a somewhat regular basis, quarterly or something like that, and have some engagement and answer their questions in a really safe environment.
Awesome. I want to give you a quick example of how a multifamily office was looking at our platform as well. And I just want to say that, you know, we have advisors, broker dealers, we have other folks who say, you know, I don't have time. This is not my core area of expertise, and I just need to find a solution to refer to. And so we are oftentimes consulted in those situations where they really need their families to be coming up the learning curve. You know, again, I think this is a great example of how time constrained many in the commercial side, the commercial space are to be able to deliver. And, you know, not everybody has the luxury of being able to find or have a chief learning officer on staff. I mean, again, let's think about it. Sometimes there's key person risk. Will that person stay on? Will they be here? How do you scale one person to maybe service hundreds of different families and family members? So again, our platform can put the driver's seat with the advisors. The advisor can help shepherd along that learning experience and be able to support the client wherever they are, and also be able to still personalize it, right? And say, hey, you should really look at this, you know, book chapter or this activity. This is really going to resonate with you, or just skip this whole section altogether because maybe this isn't as germane to your experience. So again, we're working more and more, I think, on the B2B side, because we see that this resource can really help advisors do so much more with their clients and do what they really want to do, which is advise. Education isn't always the first thing that they have to do it. It's usually a necessary part of their work. But you know, when advisors get to be in their shoes and advising clients, that's typically where we see them the happiest.
Perfect.
So let's just jump into a couple of tools. I know we've had some great, I'm trying to answer stuff in the chat as well while we're talking. And again, I don't think of ourselves really so much as hitting on all the soft issues that many consultants and some of the advisors that we also like to complement in this space. We like to focus more on the education and the planning. We do have a wealth workbook that can be a great conversation starter around wealth, and that's a great tool that advisors might want to download from our site. We also have developed this personal education plan and have an article in Family Business Magazine recently that tells you more. And so this personal education plan is another great way to start to identify the key elements that are going to resonate and get that learner actionable. So we want to tie our learning to applied and relevant. I need to know this so I can be able to do that. And so we even have developed an education questionnaire. Again, all of these tools are for you. So we hope you will take advantage and start to look at how they might help you potentially launch learning more formally, and also how we can partner and work with you to support the families that you're serving.
Perfect. And we also just have the assessment and the wealth workbook as well. The assessment is great. 167 questions I just counted. This is great for the family members who really want to get in the weeds of what does Tamarind Learning cover? And is this going to be relevant for us? So this is a great tool if you have people who like to really get into the weeds on coursework and understand what they're getting into.
All right, we're back to another poll. So we're just curious how many of you are ready to go. You're launching education. If this is something you are passionate about, you're looking at sort of maybe in the next 6 months, or it's 6 months to a year, or who knows? Ask me 2024 or later. That this isn't top of mind. So help us understand again where you are in this journey.
Yeah, and what's really great about the platform for those of you who are ready now, right, that this is essentially turnkey. If you wanted to start learning 5 minutes after this webinar, you're welcome to do that, right? So you want to go back to your clients, have some conversations and start in a month or two, that's also available to you. But it's really flexible, and it's really able to sort of meet your needs in a timely basis, as opposed to having to go out and develop curriculum and think about what you're going to do. That we really, alongside of our tools like the education plan builder, are able to move forward with that as well. So I'm going to publish the results here. We have 13% are ready now, 26% are 1 to 6 months, and 34% are 6 months to 1 year, and 26% check back next year.
Awesome. Well, again, I think it's important to recognize that we aren't like a traditional, just re-echoing what Tori just said, we're not a traditional learning institution that you have to enroll in the fall or classes start in the spring. We are real time, anywhere, anytime. And quite honestly, if you have a group that you want to pull together tomorrow, we could do that. If you wanted us to work with you to publish and promote a group for you, we can do that too. So there's lots of different ways that our cohorts get pulled together, and that's what's pretty fun and dynamic about how we operate.
Perfect. So we have a bunch of questions in the chat. Yes, we are going to cover how much does it cost, how long does it take, and how do I get started?
Perfect.
So the question that I can take this if you'd like to. So how much does it cost? So first of all, our pricing is all available on our education tab. We really like to service groups. That's the most affordable way of doing it. But in short, it is $9,000 for an individual learner, or we can do group cohorts for a multiple of that. How long does it take? Kirby spoke to this a little bit earlier, and the answer is it really depends, and people balk at that. But what I see from a client learning experience aspect is that the individual learners who are addressing a specific challenge tend to cruise through it. I have not seen anyone complete it faster than 6 months. So there's a lot of content there. We have roughly 100 hours of required material. That's not a deep dive, but as Kirby said earlier, it takes about a year to get through. And then when we see these family engagements, we give them a little bit more time. So they have 2 years to complete it because they have that communication aspect. They have that a little bit more structure. They might be saying, okay, Q1, finish this class and we'll have a conversation around it. How do I or my client get started? So you can, again, just if you want to, go to the education page, put it in your cart, get a login and get started. You can also always reach out to myself or to Kirby, and we can help you get started, particularly if you are looking for a more sort of customized solution, or you're looking for a larger group. Then we do education assessments, which we'll send out in the post materials. And then what if it takes me longer than a year? So that's a question we get a lot. People get really concerned about not being able to get through all of the coursework, and that is totally fine. You're able to continue on after that for a really nominal fee. You've paid for the course itself, so then you're basically just continuing your access over time. One of the things that I really like as someone who helps develop some of the curriculum is that over time we are always introducing new curriculum, and so it might take you longer than a year because we just added a bunch more coursework and you want to go back and you want to check that out. So there is a degree of sort of evergreen durability, and then we're also introducing new content. So when a great podcast comes out, or new research comes out, or a new tool is introduced, we like to include that in our content as well. And then also about the offering coaching or consulting, we do like this to be asynchronous. That's sort of the dream outcome for us here at Tamarind, is for advisors to take this and do the coaching and consulting themselves. And we do have a number of tools to help advisors coach their clients through this, but we do offer coaching and consulting as an additional fee to the learning itself. Did I miss anything, Kirby?
The only thing I would add is that in certain cases, we have found that advisors want to make this part of their service offering. So they are asking us, hey, what if I want to do this more on an enterprise level? And we do have the ability to have more bespoke conversations. If you're an advisor who says, oh, I actually really want to partner with Tamarind Learning and share and disseminate. So we're happy to have those conversations. We also have them with bigger institutions who are saying, oh boy, we don't want to create all this. This is a lot, but this looks like a great thing that's turnkey that could really springboard our learning resources. And finally, I want to mention that more and more we are finding institutions, banks, and other folks are interested because they see this for training internally. They're like, wow, this is a great way to socialize a lot of the complexity that our clients face, but now connect some of the different aspects of wealth management, estate planning, trust, tax, and so forth. So there's a lot of different kinds of cool applications, and we gave you a few case studies, but we have several more if that's of interest to learn more about how other are using our system.
All right, perfect. Let's get to our advisor offer, Kirby.
Surely. Okay. So if you haven't taken advantage of just trying out Tamarind Learning, we really want you to jump in, and you can do a 7-day trial, but this is the free thing, cool thing we're offering. If you want to reach out to us, we will enroll you and one or more. There's no sort of only limited head count, but we'll create a cohort. So you can actually try this out, no cost to you, no cost to the family. And you can get learners engaged, so you can actually see what it would be like to launch a learning cohort yourself. We'll put you in the role of advisor, and you can bring in maybe your peers if you want to just try it internally first, or you can also bring in a group of family members who want to check this out, this technology out. And so if you reach out to us in the next month, we'll be able to set this up for you, and you'll be able to access all the resources in that stewardship course. And we'll share with you the advisor toolkit, and we'll give you a specific referral code. So there'll be no expense. But this will be a great way to actually get a lot of practical application and a lot of transparency into our system, and really appreciate the complexity of what we offer.
Okay, perfect. We have 1 minute left. So if anyone wants to throw anything into the chat, they are perfectly welcome to. I did want to address one question, which was, when does sort of like the next course start? We do not at this time do structured courses. So you would be doing a cohort with your family or with a NextGen group, or they could get started by themselves. And we do not have, you know, April 1st, the next course starting. You can get started whenever, wherever you want. So we really want to emphasize that this is a little bit different than sort of that traditional course framework.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate that all of the pricing, if you go under education tab, there's all the course outlines, but also the pricing is right there. Again, if you're thinking about this from more of an enterprise situation, we don't provide enterprise pricing. And we'd be happy to go into that further with you and just have a deeper education assessment, as Tori said. We're here for you. We'd love to hear from you. And please don't forget, we have tons of excellent resources that you can use today to start some of the Tamarind Learning ways. Our wealth workbook, our podcast, we have a great newsletter. So please don't hesitate to just take a perusal through our site and find out what appeals to you. Thank you so much for everyone who's attended. Please reach out to Tori and I, and we'd love to talk more.